Hey, welcome to the Soulful Hustle. Philip from Metamonks here. Today I want to look together with you on a super interesting scientific paper that I stumbled upon. It's called "If Money Doesn't Make You Happy, Then You Probably Aren't Spending It Right." And I find that a very interesting title already. First of all, it's a title that you wouldn't expect from a scientific paper. It sounds a little bit like BuzzFeed. And second of all, it says that there is a way where money can make you happy when you spend it right. So let's have a look what the paper has to say. The first of 8 points that it makes is buy experiences instead of things. Because when you buy things, things get old, you get used to those things, you have them around you all the time. But if you invest in experiences, for example, you go to Disneyland or to Awesomeness Fest or some other sort of peak experience, your mind can benefit from that for a long time. So you will always have this nice peak experience in mind and you will enjoy thinking of it. So it's investing in experiences rather than things is a very wise choice. Of course, that can overlap. For example, if you buy a nice car, there is also the experience factor attached to that maybe. So of course it's not as black and white. Sometimes things can lead to experiences, but in general, spending money on experiences, holidays, travels and so on leads to more happiness than buying things. The second point is help others instead of yourself. And that's basically as simple as the headline is. It makes you more happy to spend money on other people than if you spend it on yourself. That can be small or large things. You can invite a friend to a beer, but you can also make, of course, large donations to charities. And that's scientifically proven to make you happier than when you buy things for yourself. Super interesting. The third thing this paper recommends is to buy many small pleasures instead of a few big ones. Simply because when it comes to spending money, frequency is more important than intensity. So better reward yourself with small purchases that you spread out over a time frame than like saving up for one big thing that you want to buy and only have the satisfaction that comes from spending money once. So there is a certain satisfaction connected to the actual purchase. And if you have more of them, it's better than if you have one large purchase per year, for example. The fourth point is very interesting. It's called buy less insurance. And funnily enough, if you buy like extended warranties or are collecting different insurances, those things, scientifically proven, don't make you happy at all. The opposite is the case. You create more worries, you create more angst around those topics. That's the one aspect on this one. And the second aspect is that if a worst case happens, humans are really, really good in adapting to new situations. So basically, our happiness is not really so much dependent on in which state of surrounding, in which, for example, in which flat we live or in like on external surroundings. That's not so much the cause for our happiness. So, for example, if you have a household insurance and kind of your house gets flooded and you have to move to another place, we adapt really quickly to that and are not being depressed for a long time. Of course, it's maybe a tragic life event, but it does not influence our general state of happiness so much. So many insurances are not worth it at all. The fifth aspect they were looking at is called pay now and consume later. So funnily enough, if you postpone the consumption of the object that you purchased or the experience that you purchase, the more you do that, the happier you will be. So definitely avoid the opposite case, the consume now, pay later. That's for many reasons not a good thing to do. Also for the reason of not leading to as much happiness. But you can flip this around even. If you pay now and consume it later, for example, wait for something to be shipped to your door for a couple of days, can really like hold this level of satisfaction inside you up for quite a bit. And that leads to measurably more happiness. The next point is think about what you're not thinking about. And that's quite interesting. For example, if you have a dream, that's the example they bring up. If you have a dream of owning a family cottage in the woods, it sounds like a nice dream, but think about the aspects that are not covered by your normal thought that you have around this. Because like the normal thought that you will have is like, oh, you spend great quality time with your family, maybe you go fishing, you just relax and things like that. But to every purchase or to every plan of this kind, there are also some effects, maybe of logistical nature or of social nature, that are not really leading to more happiness. For example, an exhausting drive to this cottage with your kids in the back of the car for 3 hours every weekend. That might be a thing to consider simply for not making a purchase where you think it makes you more happy. But then you find out, okay, there are the downsides, which I haven't thought about just enough. Beware of comparison shopping. Oh wow, aren't we all super guilty of this? Like when you want to buy a new camera, you go on the internet and you compare, you know all the features, you know all the specs, and then you make a purchase decision. Funnily enough, counterintuitively, that's a thing that leads to less happiness. First of all, because it requires a lot of effort. You can't be spontaneous. You can't just go in the city, go to a mall and buy the camera that you like. So that's one thing, because it just gets a very mental thing. But the more important thing is that if you do this comparison shopping, you know all the specs of the cameras, for example, and then you narrow it down to this one camera that suits your need the best. You still are very aware of the things that it can't do. For example, I don't know, maybe it has more megapixels, but a smaller sensor or something. There's some trade-off because it's most likely not perfect in all regards. So, and you will always know this and you will have it in mind. And that's why I think, oh yeah, man, this camera is so good. But if it would also have this other feature that it doesn't have, it would be much better. So there is no perfect camera, and it would basically make you more happy to just buy any of the cameras spontaneously that you like, rather than comparing all of them and therefore staying uncontent in a way. Last point is follow the herd instead of your head. That's quite an interesting one, because we as humans are quite terrible in estimating how much happiness a certain purchase will bring us. That's why reviews work so well. For example, if you want to watch a movie, find some sites where you have personal reviews of people that watched them. And if you follow that advice, it generally works very well, filtering out the purchases or the decisions that won't bring you happiness after all, and that just would be a disappointment. I find all of those points very fascinating and interesting. Because remember, it's science. It's not something that's on a Facebook quote or made up by some coach. It's backed by science. All those points have experiments associated with them, multiple ones, and are proven. So let's wrap up I'd like to read the conclusion, because the study says it better than I could ever summarize it. When asked to take stock of their lives, people with more money report being a good deal more satisfied. But when asked now how happy they are at the moment, people with more money are barely different than those with less. This suggests that our money provides us with satisfaction when we think about it, but not when we use it. That shouldn't happen. Money can buy many, if not most, if not all of the things that make people happy. And if it doesn't, then the fault is ours. We believe that psychologists can teach people to spend their money in ways that will indeed increase their happiness, and we hope we've done a bit more of that here. So yeah, pretty fascinating story. I hope you agree. Again, it's called If Money Doesn't Make You Happy, Then You Probably Aren't Spending It Right, and it has been published by the Journal of Consumer Psychology. I'll put a link below that video so you can download it and read the whole thing if you're interested in that.